Studio. Thank you very much for watching what we're up to today. So today's little video is all about making gift bags. I'm just turning you around so you can see what it is that I'm on about, hopefully. As in these lovely little rice bag gift bags. So simple to make and great fun too. So if you haven't come across me before, I would just like to introduce myself. My name is Anita O'Neill and I am the owner of Lewis Studio here in West Norfolk. These little bags, many hundreds of years ago I would say, I went on to a workshop where I was taught how to make these by a lovely lady, where we had to choose our colourways from her lovely Japanese fabrics, and we had to stitch them all by hand. Whilst I enjoy stitching by hand, it's usually embroidery, but while I was stitching I was thinking surely it's easier to run them under a sewing machine. And we had to make these little, see this little tag to go on the end of our cord as well. And I have to say I've now progressed to adding beads onto mine. Sometimes I will pull this and glue this in, and sometimes I will leave the knot at the end. But either way, that's what we're making today. And of course we're going to be using pre-cuts because it's easier. So these little pre-cuts that we have here, these are called Charming Squares from Lewis and Irene, and I'm still using the same pack that I used in one or two of the other videos as well, so you do get a lot out of them. We also need to use one of these or some of these, and these are called Fabulous 40s, so they're 2.5-inch strips that you can also buy, and between the two of them you can get an awful lot of little bags and other things out of them. We also need some cord. So in this tin here I have got all sorts of cords, and I've selected a purple one which I'll cut down to size. And to show you where we're going with this, when you open up your packs you end up with lots and lots of little squares of fabric. These are 5-inch squares, beautiful fabrics, lovely to use, and the only thing that you'll have a problem with is matching them up to where you want to go with them. I tend to look at two fabrics the same opposite each other, and then because the bags are reversible, so when you get bored with that colour, if you want to put a really bright colour in there you can, but you can turn them through the other way like so, and you'll find that you have a different colour bag. This one's got little butterflies on the outside, and your cords will still tie, so it still works exactly the same way, but you've got different colourways. So you can do really bright on one side, and you can do more pales or pastels on another side, or you can go all out with all brights as I have on this one. So if I open this one up you'll see that this one is quite a bright one. So we've got all these reds on the outside. Then when I turn it through to the other side, I've still got bright colours. As you can see, I've got oranges and yellows, and the reds are now inside. Okay, so to make these bags you need to have 10 squares, because this being double-sided you've got to effectively make 2 bags to put them in together. So you need 10 coordinating squares of your choice, and I would lay them out to see how you like your pattern. Check whether you've got a right and a wrong way with your pattern, of course, and then decide how it's all going to go together. So that's going to be one of my outsides with this as a base, and then I've got a similar one which will go like this, another base, and that's how my bag's going to look. So it looks very nice and patchworky, doesn't it? Okay, the other thing that we need to do is to decide from our roll. So on your roll of Fabulous 40s, you're going to have these long strips, and you need to decide what colourway you're going to use. And once you've decided, you're going to, if I can reach, I don't know what I've done with that now. You need to cut them in half, so they're 2.5 inches wide. Just cut them in half is all you need to do. Once you've cut them in half, you're going to sew them together to make some lovely long tubes, which you then cut up to the size that we need, and I'll show you how to do that as we go. So to start off with, we're going to sew our squares. I'm just going to tell you other things that you need are, if you want to glue your little beads on, I recommend this particular glue, which seems to work for everything for me. This was introduced to me by my friend, and oh my god, it's marvellous. And the other thing that I recommend that you use, if you're not using a big iron, get one of these lovely mini irons. And of course Christmas is coming soon, so maybe somebody will buy one for you. Invaluable. But the only thing that I would recommend is that you turn it on a little bit earlier than you need it, because they take a while to heat up. Okay, so I have got that sitting on a heat resistant mat, which this is what this mat is. Okay, so I'm going to turn you around so that you're looking at my fabulous sewing machine that I adore. Okay, hopefully you can see that perfectly okay. So just adjust that a bit. There we go. So 5-inch square and 5-inch square, and you sew the right sides together. Put the two squares together, right sides together. You want 1/4 inch seam allowance. Make sure you're comfortable at your machine. Don't be hunched over it, you know, sit up straight so that you can see, otherwise you will end up with terrible backache. And make sure that you can reach your foot pedal in time. If you're not going to use the buttons, make sure you've got plenty of space there. And I can tell you that I take my shoes off because I feel I've got more control. So 1/4 inch, just literally sew down. Okay, open it out. We now have this, so we've got 2. We're then going to go in with the next one. Again, we want to have right sides together and sew straight down. I think something's just fallen over at the back there. I thought I heard something. So now we have the 3. We need to add the last one. We're still doing right sides together, and we're still sewing straight down. When you've got, not sure what, it has cut. When you have got all 4 of them together, you then bring the 2 ends together, like so. Again, right sides together, and then sew straight down. We now have a box. Okay, so I'm going to turn to the next one. I haven't put the bottom in yet, as you'll notice, but that's because I'm going to press the seams open in a minute. So again, right sides together, just sew straight down. Making sure that I've got my pattern pieces the right way up, because I think there is a right and a wrong way to this particular pattern. I need to just remind you is that change your needle before you start your new projects. So this is a new needle in here, which I think I've just put a size 12 in, of a universal needle. It's nothing posh. And there we have it. So going back round to here, and I'm now going to iron out, bring that down a bit. I'm going to open my seams. There is a reason for opening out your seams, okay, so open them out and press them. I will show you the reasons why in a minute, okay, which is why I'm using my little mini iron. And health and safety, please, please be careful when you're using it. Do not burn your hands. They do get very, very hot. Okay, if you want to do this with a normal iron, then of course do so. It's just that it's easier not to have to fiddle about and move, isn't it? Okay, so that's the first one. Do every single one of them, and you'll find that once you've done this, when you go to put the base on, it will be so much easier. Keep going all the way down, Anita. Come on. You need to just straighten that a bit. That's it. They are lovely, these irons. And then the next one. I was going to get a big iron out, but then I thought, who's going to be able to see what I'm doing if there's a dirty great big iron in the way? Also, I'd have to get out the sleeve board and everything to put this round, because then it would be easier to do it. That's that bit, and then this one. Okay, these bags make lovely little gift bags for people. So this Christmas I've decided, because you make them in all different sizes, you don't have to do them this size. So I've decided that I'm not going to buy wrapping paper to give gifts to people at all. So if I'm going to give a gift, then it's going to be in one of these bags. Turn it through so that we can do that. We're now on the second one, okay? Because I think wrapping paper personally is a waste of money. Although your gifts look beautiful when they're beautifully wrapped, of course they do. But what happens is people rip it off, or the majority of people rip it off, and then it gets thrown in the bin. Pointless. Now, I did have a mother-in-law once who used to keep them. We used to have to be very careful. She used minimum sellotape, and we had to be very, very careful when we were unwrapping our gifts, so that she could have the paper back for the following year. It didn't matter how ropey it got, she still did it. So there we go. So that's that one. Nearly finished. These bags can be used for all sorts of things. Sometimes I give them to people that come to my classes so that they can keep their basic sewing kit in. Sometimes I give them to people, like I've already said, with gifts in as well. And sometimes I just use them to store things in. So if I want to put something, so like for example, if I want to keep certain scissors or needles or something like that in there, then I do so. Okay, I haven't turned that off for a very good reason. We're going to be using it again shortly. Okay, so now we're going to put the base on. And the reason, turn that back round to, so it's inside out now, and as you can see, these seams are all pressed out, so we can actually get to where we're going with them. And again, we're going we're going right sides together. Now I'm hoping that I can show you this. So this is the base, and this is the square we've just ironed. Wait for that to focus in. Right, now where we've got this edge here, we want the edge of this to come to. So if you see, that edge and this edge are the same, which, yes, it is coming over that central seam, but we want it to, and that's how you're going to get your square to fit. You don't start sewing there, you start sewing on the seam. Turn you round again. That's it. And away we go. So we're still doing 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. We're going to make sure that we're starting where the seam is, and then this one should come to, which it does if they're cut correctly, and they always are with Lewis and Irene, to the end of the next piece. That's got stuck on something. What are you stuck on? That's it. When you get to here, so this is the base we're sewing on. Lift the foot up and bring this round. So the base goes that way. So turn your base to the left if you're left-handed, and bring this bit to the right if, so that it matches with this. So you're following it around. Make sure there's nothing caught up underneath. Make sure your edges all go. Go slowly to start with. Bring that along. Again, stop at the seam at the seam of the last one. So turn this piece that we're sewing on round towards the right, and what's underneath comes round to the left. And again, you'll find that your piece will match beautifully because it's cut perfectly. When you get to the end, you'll find that everything is in its place, and just so that you can see this, this is the last bit, so we're going to sew right up to this seam here. Just a quick little word about poking things through. So I'm just going to turn this here so that you can see these. Right, these come as a set. You get a thick one, a thin one, sorry, a medium-sized one, and a big old fat one. Okay, so we've got 3 of these here, these tubes here. We're going to use a small one. These sets are invaluable when it comes to turning things out, and also for poking things through. So just to demonstrate this, we're going to be using this in a minute, okay? So this has got a metal rod that goes through the centre of this for turning things out. The others that I've got, that part of the set, have got wooden ones. So this pokey stick, nice pointy end, but not too pointy, and a flat end as well. This goes in the medium size one, but it's trimmed off. Okay, you have your first little bag here. We're going to turn this through to the right way, because one of them has to be, and using our stick, we are just going to poke the corners out. See? Perfect corners. Beautiful. Poke them all through. that one through and poke that one through. There we go. Put that back in there because I don't want to lose it. And here you have your first side done. So we're now going to add the bottom onto this one in exactly the same way. So just turn you round again so that you're looking at the sewing machine. Okay. I'm going to make sure I've got you in the same place that you should be in. It helps, doesn't it? Okay, so we're working right sides together again. We've got everything, you see we've pressed our seams so we know where we're working from. Wherever you want to start. So starting on that first seam, take that out for a minute, Anita, because you haven't got that lined up properly. Now I have. You can tell if they're not lined up properly because you've got too much coming over the other edge. I'm just going to whiz around this one quickly so that you can get to see the next stage. If you find it's curled under at any point, just use an old needle to flick it out. Get up out of my way, thank you. Just adjust myself. Now, we're going to use the tube and we're going to insert it into the open end. And I know it's not long enough, but that doesn't matter. This is going to turn this out so quick and easy, it's unbelievable. Best bit of kit in the world, I think. Okay, so now find your tube and poke it. Now with these smaller ones, you have to work it up. And then down, look at that. Take the tube out. There we have, it's all turned out, and we know that our, oh, where are you, Anita? We know that our piece of metal is still in there. So literally snip the top off. Be careful to move it out of the way so you don't blunt your needles, your scissors, sorry, and out it comes. How quick was that, Marvellous! Whoever invented them needs to be given a medal, in my opinion. Okay. So that's how you make your tube, and then you want to make sure, give it a press, that the seam is in the centre and not to one side, okay? And you would press all the way down. So I'm going to use this colour on those. So I'm just going to give that a press, like this. Come on. Doesn't want to go in the middle, but it's going to, whether it wants to or not. Getting tangled up here underneath all these wires. Don't you fall off. I don't want to be burnt, especially if people are watching, because I might get told off then for my language. So take it all the way down, making sure that it's in the middle. And the idea of that is so that when they're folded out you won't see the seams. And that's the reason why we're doing that. No, it's not easy, it is tricky. Especially if you've got a piece that doesn't want to go. There we go. Okay, and then I measure these 3 inches. So 1, 2, 3. You can have your loops as long as short as you like, because you're the one that's making the bag. We need 4. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to fold that in half. Okay. This time with the wrong sides together. So do you see the seam? I'll bring that up close. Come on, focus thingy. Thank you. The seam is here in the middle, and we're going to fold that up like that. And then the one that you've got the right way out, and you've got your seams pressed out, this is going to sit in there. So it's on the outside here. Okay. You've still got your machine set to the narrowest width to sew. I'm just going to stitch that across the top here so that it's secure. Do 1 on each corner. Back on the sewing machine. Okay. Do you know what? I think I'm beginning to get the hang of this, she says. If you prefer to pin this, do so. If that's what you're happy to do, then pin it. I'm not going to pin it. And sometimes your machine might object, so just help it along if it needs it. Walk it over. What you don't want is your top folded piece to move. So there you have it. It's attached. Where are we? Oh, there we are. Okay, so we are attached. So do all of those. Last one. And that has moved. Back on there. Back on track, please. Thank you. Okay, so now I'm going to take the tray off here and use the arm like so, because it's easier. And what I'm going to do now is we're putting right sides together. Okay, so this one is going inside this one, but decide how you want your patterns to match up. So I'm going to turn mine so that the patterns are not matched, because I don't want them to be. Okay, and you're now in. Set the machine to 1/4 inch seam allowance, and we're going to sew around the top, matching the seams, but we need to leave a gap, because what we have to do, let me show you, is turn it around the right way. So I usually start about 1 inch from the first tab. Roundabouts, nothing precise about that. Make sure your tabs so that your corners are lined up. That's the only important thing at the moment. Are you lined up? Not quite. There you are. And so, all the way round. Going through several thicknesses, so do help it if you feel that machine needs help. All depends on how old your machine is. And what type of a machine you have. This one's used to stitching through fairly thick things because it is actually a quilting machine. So it doesn't really mind too much, so long as I've got a sharp needle in there, of course. Just gone over the last one and about 1 inch and secure that off. Trim any threads that may be sticking out, quite a few on this one. That's because I didn't trim as I go. Now you've got two options when you turn this through. You can either hand stitch it, I'm not going to do that, using a ladder stitch, or set your machine to the shortest you can do. So mine's as far over to the right as it can go. If you're left-handed, you'd go the other way. Okay, we're now turning this through our little gap. See, it's so easy. Then we get our poking stick, poke out all our corners. Please don't use scissors when you're doing this, please, or anything sharp, because you will go through your fabric and you'll have ruined what you've made. So it's not recommended. Poke it through, that's it. We're all poked. We are. So what you now have is this long tube, see? So push one inside the other. Put your tabs up on your corners. Okay. Now, it's up to you whether you want to iron around this top bit if you want to first. I don't generally, I just sew round it, okay? But I don't start, where are we? I don't start at this open edge. I tend to start on the next one. I make sure that I have got my edges nice so that I know where I'm going with it. But if you want to iron it to get it flatter, do so. You know, it's your bag, you decide. Okay, so I am going to start here, feed it under the machine, and we're now top stitching all the way around, or I am anyway. We're going through several layers when we get to the corners, so go slow. Just to make sure that there's no problems with it. Going straight across. We're now coming up to the opening. And if you pull that, they're going to fold in on themselves anyway. So you can't see the opening there. And you know, I've just realised the colours on there look completely different to the colours on here, because that looks like blue and this is more purple. So that's interesting. And if you've sewn it in a straight line, you'll find when you get to the end, your stitching will overlap the other stitching. Just putting my shoe back on. Bring that back round here. Take that off the machine. Moving that out of the way because I'm bringing the camera, she says, hopefully closer for you to see. So that's the best place for you to see the top stitching. So I have gone all the way round. I don't know how well you can see that on there. Okay. And you can't see the gap. And of course it's going to look exactly the same on both sides. And that's finishing that bag off, I think, much nicer than trying to do a ladder stitch and holding it closed. I like a bag to be finished. You can make these as elaborate as you want. So, you know, if you wanted to put a row of lace or some sort of other embellishment there, you can use normal fabrics, so like a calico if you wanted, and you can do some sort of a plique or machine stitch into there. I've seen them done with old pairs of jeans where people have stitched all over the jeans. You know, you can make these from whatever you want, really. And then we need our piece of cord, and I like to make my cords in between 18 and 20 inches, depending on what look I'm going for with my bag. We also need our beads. Thank you, Ruth, for the use of the beads. Right, so using our ruler, obviously, I'm going to measure this one 18 inches. Always keep your little bits that you've got left over, because you never know what you might want to use them for. So we'll get that out of the way, and I'll show you how to thread this bag up. I'll bring it a bit closer. Right, so decide where you want to have your beads hanging from. That's the important thing. Where are they going to hang from? So do you want them on these sides here, which are really, really pretty, or do you want them on the plainer sides. I'm going to have them on the plainer sides. So starting here, thread it through every one and bring it back to where you started from. Select your beads. You can put tassels on these as well. You can make tassels and all sorts of things, which makes them far more interesting. Right, and get them through these. I'm going to use a couple of smaller beads. Bringing the two ends together. I think the hole's big enough. Just poke it through the hole. If it's getting stuck at any point, just grab a needle and pull it through. I did have one here, but it looks like I've moved it. Just grab a needle, bring it through, then tie your knot. You don't have to tie a knot. What you can do, and I have done before, once you've tied it, pull it really tight. Then snip it to as close as you want, or you could fray those ends as well. That's another thing you could do to make it look pretty. Then bring your bead down as far as it will go. Now what you can do is, if you've got the time, is pour some glue in there. When it's set, you can snip the end off so you don't have a big knot at the end. Okay, so now we're going to do the next side, and we're going to turn the bag so that you don't get confused, and we're going to start again. So you can see here, we're going in the same way round, but from the opposite side, and that way you'll end up with an end either side. Okay, get your bead, poke it in, that one came through a bit better. Pop the knot in, get the knot as far near the end as you can, give it a good pull, and there we have our little gift bag based on the Japanese rice bags. Just tie the knot, tie a bow, and there we go. One rice bag, beautifully made, can be stitched by hand or can be stitched by machine. It's up to you. So there we have it. Thank you very much for watching, and if you're not watching this live, then thank you for watching at a later date. That's if you're going to watch at a later date, of course. Let's just adjust that so that you can actually see me as well. So in the background here, I just wanted to show you. So Progression in Textiles have got their exhibition here. So I've sort of pinched an area so that I can still do my sewing. You can see there's some lovely things. And I wanted to point out this particular one here. This is all stitched by hand, and there's a hand felted, needle felted fox's tail there, and the fox is giving the impression that he is rummaging around in that bin. Contemporary black work, absolutely brilliant, done by a lady called Catherine. And the one above it is also contemporary black work. This is done in blue and it is 3D as well, so just gorgeous work. If you want to come and have a look, do so. We're at Ubrink Studio, and I'd like to thank you for watching once again, and hopefully I will see you again next week. Thank you very much.